Right, fantastic. I think we'll leave it now. I think we've got everybody that we need to. So brilliant, fantastic. Thank you all for joining us today. Really nice to see you all. My name is Laura Hodgkiss and I'm the event and training team leader here at the Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce. For those of you that don't know, we cannot see or hear you today, so it is just communication via the chat function, either at the bottom of your screen or at the top, and the Q&A section, which we will be using at the end as well of the webinar. Can I just check that all of you can see and hear me okay? Could you just pop in your chat boxes at the bottom and just a quick hello or a hi, just so I know that you can all hear me very clearly? Brilliant, great, fantastic. So you're all here, Brill. Thank you. Hi everyone. Brilliant, fantastic. So brilliant. So today's webinar is Take Control of Your Sales and Marketing, and it's by Chris Perkins. Like I said, at the end of the webinar, you will be able to ask Chris any questions that you like via the Q&A. But at the moment, if you just want to leave the questions just till the very end, and it's over to you, Chris, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen here now, and hopefully we're good to go. Okay, so hi, my name is Chris Perkins. I run a small management consultancy business based in Warrington. And I've been asked by the Chamber of Commerce to look at sales and marketing. Now, I'm guessing there's about 30 or 40 people listening to this at the moment, so I can't do individual sales and marketing plans. But what I'm going to talk about is the general approach to sales and marketing and how you should be planning that, and hopefully give you some tips on that. I'm not really going to look at the different channels to market and the different marketing channels. I'm really looking at the process that's going through. And hopefully by the end of this, you will all have an idea of how to put together an objective-based marketing plan, which is absolutely invaluable. It's something that I've been using now for nearly 20 years in the different businesses that I've worked in and managed. So let's move through. Quick introduction on me. So I have 20 years in sales, marketing, business development roles. Last 15 of those have been at director level. Across consumer-facing sectors, both in the service industries and manufacturing, so particularly in travel, and then more recently I have been working for Wedgwood. So that's why I have, even though I'm based in Warrington, for the past 6 years I have worked at Barlaston. I left there in June last year. For the first few years I was the marketing director and then the group business development director, so managing all of the communication for Wedgwood and Waterford, and then following that managing the global development of their licensing business. And then for 3 years, I was responsible for the World of Wedgwood tourist attraction that many of you hopefully have visited. Fabulous place. So I was managing that, and during that time, we were twice awarded the VisitEngland Gold Accolade. So that's away from marketing necessarily, but more into general management, people management. So there's 100 people who work there. So it was a very different thing, very steep learning curve, but great fun. In September last year, I set up my business. It's called One Objective, and why it's called One Objective will become clear halfway through this presentation. What I try and do is work with SMEs and provide a clear, workable direction. I help them with their sales and marketing strategy and the delivery. Just to give you a background then, so marketing group business development at Wedgwood, managing director at World of Wedgwood. I've also had sales and marketing director roles for a cruise line based in Australia. I was marketing e-com director for Fitness First in Australia. And then I've worked with in the travel industry here in the UK, and also in the supermarket industry. You'll see that some of these at the bottom don't actually exist anymore, and that hopefully isn't anything to do with me. They just have gone. But the ones up at the top are still very much active brands. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what I do now. I am a part-time marketing director. So I work with a range of SMEs and I act as their marketing director. I give all of the marketing direction that a normal marketing director would do, but I do that 1 day a week. And that really, the value that a marketing director can add can be done in 1 day a week. So I work with companies where there's a lack of experienced decision-making or leadership in the marketing team, where there's a lack of clear branding or values. I work with clients to make sure that they have those branding values. If there's no marketing direction or strategy, I help with that. And also sales strategy, tactical responsiveness, and probably most important of all is ROI. Making sure that customers are, or my clients are, putting together strategic sales initiatives that work and are measurable. The other thing I do is I'm not a marketing agency by any stretch of the imagination, but I work very closely with agencies. Sometimes SMEs don't get the value that they can do out of marketing agencies, and I help with that process. So that's enough of my plug. I'll get on to what I'm actually going to talk about now, okay? So I came across this on the Ernst & Young site earlier this week, and I've thrown it into this presentation because it's absolutely, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about today and where you need to be up to in terms of your sales and marketing planning. So at this time, companies should be making decisions and taking actions with recovery in mind. So I think for the first month of this lockdown, I think it's kind of hit everyone for six. There's been a lot of survival going on. There's been a lot of change. There's the whole furlough process. There's adapting. There are people working from home. Businesses are struggling. Businesses don't know what to do. I think the whole country, the whole world is just in absolute meltdown to an extent. But now we've kind of reached the norm, and what we need to be looking at is planning for the future to make sure that your business has the resilience and the agility to be able to come out of the other side of this crisis. Okay, so we've all reached this norm where we understand that people are working from home, and we've found new processes, we've done all the workarounds we have to do. Now is the time we really need to get our heads down and begin to think about what's going to happen going forward, because that will be the difference. The companies who don't do this process at the moment, or don't do a planning process, won't know when and how they're going to come out of this crisis. Okay. So I've got I'm going to talk about a planning process, but very generally, there are a few things that I think people need to think about. And these may seem very obvious, but I'm going to say them anyway. You need to research and drill down and analyze. And the first part of this, before you start planning, that is the most important part, that you know everything about your business. What can happen is when people are working in the business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you sometimes miss things because you're doing the day-to-day, you're very much focused on what's right in front of you. And sometimes you miss the bigger picture, or you miss the trends that are happening around you. So during this process, you need to use what you have. There is so much management data available at the moment that people have access to, but don't look at enough. So look at your management data, see what you can find. I can guarantee there is something in everyone's management data that will be news to them. I remember starting at Wedgwood, and the first thing I did was went through all of their management data, and I remember presenting it to the directors there, and they thought I was the oracle, like I was bringing things out. I said, well, no, this is all just there. It's all just available. So make sure you're using it. Also, make sure you're using the internet, because there is so much information on the internet that is incredibly helpful for you. The next thing, write everything down. I use spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet geek, but I get everything written down, because once it's written down, you can begin to manipulate it and make links. Don't just have everything floating around in your head. Try and get some kind of structure to the way you are recording everything, because it will allow you to plan more effectively if you can see all of these different pieces of information. The other thing is talk and debate. I'm not sure who's on at the moment, whether you are owner managers or department managers, I don't know. But you have a team around you. Most people have teams around them. And the planning process isn't just down to the manager. The planning process is really helped by including your team. And I'm sure some of you have got teams who are working remotely at the moment, and it's a really good way of building a team ethic to be able to talk to the people around you, get them involved, tell them about what you're thinking about, have they got any perspectives that they can add. I think by doing that, you will uncover other people's knowledge and other people's perspectives that maybe you haven't thought about if you're taking all of this on yourself. What you will also do by talking to the team is you'll get their buy-in. If the team feels like they are being included in the process, they are more likely to support it and buy into it in the long term, rather than just be told and told to accept it. Okay, so there's some very general things to think about. So the first part of the research is, the first start of the planning process, sorry, is your research. Now, as part of what I'm doing during the lockdown generally, I've actually created a series of free tutorials that are on my website that you can have a look afterwards that take you through these 5 different things. And this enables you, as I said before, to look into your data, to write things down, to get things in perspective. So they're all available on my website. There's another quick plug, but I'll move on. But so these are the 5 key things that I think you really need to do. The first is identify myths that affect your decision making. So what can happen sometimes in business is you maybe hear a rumor, or you see something, or you have a very dominant customer, and you begin to form ideas in your mind that in your mind become facts. And they're not facts at all, they're misleading. But because they're in your mind, you begin to make decisions around them. And those decisions, therefore, are wrong. So this is a really good time to think about all the things that you take as gospel in your business. And that might be customers, it might be sales, it might be the product that you're selling. There's a million different things, but if they're solidified in your mind, I'm not questioning you, but you need to question them and see whether they're true. If they're not true, you may find that your decision making is better in the longer term. Okay, and they're just the myths. I used to sit at work for a company, and the trading team was full of myths. And the 2 words they would use is everyone is going to do this, or no one is going to do this. And it's very rarely everyone or no one. It's always somewhere in the middle. And if you know where in the middle you are, it's a lot easier to make decisions. Okay, that's 1. Number 2 is learn from your existing data. Now, every modern business has an absolute mine of data. And by going into it, you can learn so much about your business that maybe you take for granted. Now, we're not like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, like with that autistic thing to be able to see numbers and see figures. So the best way to interrogate is to ask questions about your data. So think about what you want to find out. What do you want to know that's in your data? What do you want to know about your products, about your sales, about your customers? Write those questions down and then go in to the data and find those questions and answer them. Don't try and look and build trends and start playing around with things, because what can happen is the data then becomes quite misleading. Okay, so you need to go into your kind of data analysis with firm questions in your mind that will help you to formulate a strategy later on. Okay. The next thing, and it's similar, it's what can Google tell you? So at the moment, you can search just about anything. The internet has all the information that you need. Some of it you have to pay for, but the vast majority of things you just don't have to pay for. It's very rarely, even working for bigger businesses like Wedgwood or cruise businesses, that you actually pay for market data. You should be able to find sufficient market data to be able to give you enough direction. You can be checking out what your competitors are all doing, what are their websites looking like, what are their processes. You should be going on to every single competitor and going through a process right the way through to payment. Don't necessarily buy the product, but see what that process is and see what you can learn from it. Have a look at what your customers are doing, what your suppliers are doing, what general market research is out and available, because it will all build and help you in your forward strategy. Okay. Next is customer segmentation. Now, I'm a bit of a customer segmentation geek, and I'm not suggesting that every business can build a full customer segmentation model, but really, as part of your data research, you should be seeing what groups are there within your customer database and see whether you can segment them a little bit so you can develop different marketing strategies and different marketing plans, because you will get far greater ROI from your marketing activity if it's directed to a certain group. One size fits all doesn't really work. And if you can develop 2, 3, 4 different customer groups and change your marketing slightly to tailor to those, whether it's the message, whether it's the channel, whether it's the product, then you will get a far greater return. Okay. And finally, no one likes doing this, but analyze your costs. From my perspective, that's all about marketing. Look at your marketing budget and marketing plan. Every marketeer out there loves writing marketing plans because it gets the creative juices flowing, and they will come up with all these fabulous ideas. What a lot of marketeers aren't as good at is at the end of the year looking whether those creative ideas actually worked. So it's going into your marketing plan and putting measures in place on there. So if you've spent X amount, what have you brought back from it? That may be direct sales, it may be brand building, but in all these things, you need to be able to quantify what your marketing is doing. And in every business I've gone into, you can generally take out 10 to 20% of marketing spend that is inefficient, okay? Depending on who your predecessor has been, they may prefer certain things, they may have been very creative and not looking at the actual return on investment. And you can very easily take out 10% of any marketing budget. I'm not saying cut your marketing budget, but you may want to reinvest it in other things. But now is the time to be looking at all those things so that when you begin to build your plan, they're all in mind, okay? Now, the next thing is SWOT analysis. Now, I don't know how many people do SWOT analysis. The businesses I've worked in, it's always been SWOT analysis, and you learn SWOT analysis in uni and college. Sometimes it's very effective, sometimes it really isn't. And it depends whether you're doing it properly. For those who haven't done SWOT analysis, it is a way of bringing together it's an internal analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of your business. And they're the things that you can influence very easily. And then it's an external analysis of the opportunities and threats that are in the general market. And if you bring all those together, you should be able to pull together a series or a better understanding of your business, but also an action plan that will allow you to build a strategy going forward. Okay. Now, the reason, if you're doing SWOT analysis, a lot of people do it and it's just like, it's like a tick box exercise. Oh, we've done it now. And I've sat in rooms myself where you can be sitting there for half an hour and people are kind of mulling over some kind of SWOT analysis and conversation. And then you come to the end of it and then you just move on. And it's almost as if the SWOT analysis hasn't happened. This analysis needs to be central to your decision-making going forward. And one of the reasons that this is really going to come into its own in the coming weeks and months is the opportunities and threats in the market are going to change considerably. This whole coronavirus is going to change the way we live, the way we work, the way we interact with each other, and the whole working landscape is going to change. And because of that, your opportunities are going to change and your threats are going to change too, and you need to be aware of them. And you can do that through this SWOT analysis. In the past, I'm sure you've all done a SWOT analysis where one of the threats is competition. It's just a single word, competition. Now, the threats are going to be completely different. And this, I'm going to take a little segue now because I thought this was really interesting. You can find all of this on the internet. But if you just search about predictions post-coronavirus, there are so many fantastic articles about this. And here's just one that I found. It was trending on Twitter, actually, and absolutely brilliant. So within your business, what you need to be doing is brainstorming how these changes in the coronavirus world are going to affect your business. What I'm talking about here are very general things. They may be some things that are very specific to you. So certain things, companies that traffic in digital services will make immediate and lasting gains. So I don't know how many of you used Zoom before 4 weeks ago. I certainly didn't. I was using other things, but now everyone's on Zoom. Zoom is probably going to be the way forward. That's one thing that's changed. So one of your opportunities may be, how can I use Zoom more effectively within my business? Another one, remote work will become a default. There are so many people working from home now, and whereas people weren't sure about it before, and businesses certainly weren't sure about it, you will find that people enjoy it, they like it, they can be as productive as they were before. There may be some positives and some negatives, but it will certainly be a change around. So when offices begin to open again, I don't think as many people will be going back to the offices, maybe not full-time, they may be part-time in the office, part-time at home, but remote working will become far more prevalent. Many jobs will be automated. At the moment, we're trying to find workarounds for many of the jobs that we do, and they will become automated as a matter of course. Telemedicine will become the new normal. I'm going to give you an example. Our dog's sick, and I had a teleconference with the vet this morning because that's the way they're going to diagnose that my dog has got a problem. And there will be so much medical innovation around that. It's similar with learning. The student debt crisis is getting to a point where children are coming out of students are coming out of university now with massive debts. They don't necessarily need to take them on if we can find out ways of doing effective online teaching. Okay, so people are going to be looking at different ways of working. In the short term, goods and people are going to move less often. We're not allowed to move, and I don't think we're going to be able to move freely for maybe 6 or 12 months until there's a vaccine. So how is that going to threaten your business, or what opportunities does it present? And then after this isolationism, in 12 months' time, when there's a vaccine, we may all find that we become there's going to be a hell of a lot of cooperation because people have found new ways of working and new ways to cooperate. So that was just me going on a bit of a tangent. Have a look on Google and see what you can find out about how things are going to change that is relevant to your business, your industry, your sector. Looking at the SWOTs, looking at your SWOT analysis needs to be done, it needs to be slightly different. So we just talked about research the changing nature of the opportunities and threats. Try and make this a team event. Get as many people involved, get them on a Zoom chat and talk about SWOT analysis so that everyone is throwing in their perspective. The next one is a big one. Get everyone to create their own SWOT, because what can happen is you all sit in a room and you throw out these ideas that go into your strengths and you go into your weaknesses, and people nod their heads and people agree, and it's kind of a consensual compromise. If you do this on your own and you think about different things on your own, you may disagree with other people, and those disagreements form the basis of a good debate. And I've already done this with one of my clients. We've had a fantastic SWOT analysis using Zoom where everyone's just has already done the SWOT analysis, sent it to me, and I've collated it and shared it. And then the whole team have talked about it, because some things that some people see as a strength, other people may see as a weakness. Okay. Points need to be expanded. Don't just write competition. Don't just write good team. Say why the competition is a threat, or say why the team is so good. You need to expand on these things. That just comes from 10 years of doing this, where there are a number of things you just put in a SWOT analysis like competition just to get you through. Actually expand on them. And then the next thing is a confrontation. So take your strengths and weaknesses and then actively confront them with the opportunities and threats. How are your strengths going to open up opportunities, and how are they going to stop the threats? How are your weaknesses going to make you miss out on opportunities, and how are they going to make you succumb to threats? Okay, and from that, you should be able to deliver some clear actions that are coming from the SWOT analysis. So instead of it just being a tick box exercise, it's a really proactive way of you putting together your strategy for your business. Okay, So that's all your research. And once you've got all that information together, you should then be able to put together your plan. So about 15 years ago, I learned a management planning technique called OGSM, which stands for Objectives, Goals, Strategies, and Measures, okay? Now, other people say it stands for Oh God Save Me. And in the current circumstances, you could say that this is an Oh God Save Me plan, because we're all very much in difficult times, not knowing the way forward. This is the way, this is a planning method of saving you. So you might just remember it as Oh God Save Me. So it's a working business plan. The whole organization buys into it and understands it and works towards it. But the key to it is it's on one single piece of paper. So you're not looking at 20-page presentations or 100-page plans. This pulls together everything in that business that needs to happen on a single piece of A4 paper. Okay. So it stands for Objectives, Goals, Strategies, Measures, and it allows everything to go on a single page. It makes clear the relationship between your company objective and how you are going to achieve it and what happens in the business every day. People can make very clear links between where you want to be and what you're doing on a daily basis. Because sometimes a lot of people in businesses, they go in and they do their job and they don't really understand how it impacts the bigger picture. The OGSM will allow you to make those links right the way through. And what it will also do is allow you to find weak links where people maybe aren't contributing to the overall objective and they need to be maybe retasked or look at their role and see how it can be changed to make sure you are achieving that objective. And the format also makes it very easy to communicate to employees. So when I was at Wedgwood, all of my team had their OGSM plan right next to their screen at their workstation. Everyone had it so that everyone knew the objective and the goals and the strategies that we needed to work to. The benefits, it will allow you to focus on important aspects of your strategy and your operation. And by linking the corporate objectives to departmental plans and individual actions, it makes sure that everyone is working to the same one objective. Now, at the end there, you'll see you've made the connection. That's what my business is built around. So even though I'm a hands-on part-time marketing director, I use this methodology with all of my clients because it works. And the first thing I do with my clients is I generate an objective in terms of where they want to be. And it's just one objective. You can read business plans where there may be 7, 8, 10 objectives that we need to do. This is about having one that everyone in your business understands. Okay. So it works like this. We put together an objective, what we want to achieve, which is a very inspiring statement. And then that's supported by some goals. So these put numbers on that objective. And that may be sales, it may be profitability, it may be costs, all manner of things, but they need to be number driven so you know that you've achieved them. Then we have a number of strategies in terms of how we're going to achieve those goals. And finally, the most important bit is that we measure everything that we do. And the measures are linked directly to the goals that we set. So it's no point having certain goals and certain numerical goals if we're not going to measure them. And it's hierarchical as well. So depending on how big the business is, you can put together a corporate OGSM plan. And then based on that, you can put together a sales OGSM, an HR OGSM, an operational one. Then you can go down to a team level, and then you can go down to individual level. And if you really want to use this in your business, the individual OGSM is essentially a job description, and it links directly to bonuses and these type of things. Okay. And you'll see down here in the bottom left, every person in that business understands how they contribute to the corporate one objective because it's written in their plan. And if they fulfill their plan, they will have fulfilled their part of the corporate objective. Okay. So let's look at these individually. So the first part is the objective itself. A clear and powerful articulation of the organization's qualitative goal. That's like management speak overload, isn't it? It's slightly different to a mission statement or a vision statement, in that mission statements and vision statements for a business go over are generic and always work, and they're more linked to values. This is time related. This objective is time related. Where do you want to be in 1 year, or where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be? I mean, it's up to you when you set that time for. When I started at World of Wedgwood in 2016, the place wasn't operating in a way it should have done. And we set a 6-week OGSM that got the place up and running, ready for the key tourism season. At the same time, I was writing a 1 year and a 3-year plan. But the 6-week plan had to be put together, as I say, in 6 weeks. And it worked as well. We hit those goals, we used the strategies, and we got where we needed to be. So it may be coming out of this crisis now, you may need to say, where do I want to be in 3 months' time? Because there's going to be so much going on in this 3 months. Unless you sort that out in 3 months, you might not be anywhere in 6 months. You might not be anywhere near a 1-year plan. So where do you need to be in 3 months? Then, looking further ahead, where do I want to be in a year? And even further, 3 years. And the further out you go, the more strategic it becomes. If you're looking at 3 months, it's fairly tactical. If you're looking at 3 years, you're looking at a very strategic plan that will manage your whole business for you. When you're writing the objectives, it's not just what you want to be, but how are you going to do it? And that's what your employees are going to buy into. So I am going to create I'm going to create a world-class tourism attraction. That's the what. And the how is by providing exceptional customer service. In fact, just that, by providing exceptional customer service. So I will create a world-class tourism attraction by providing outstanding customer service. There's what and how. You can't get to somewhere if you don't know how you're going to get there. Okay. So this objective needs to be ambitious, but it also needs to be achievable. It can't be you're going to put a man on the moon in 6 months' time, because that's not going to happen. But it needs to be something that people can buy in. It needs to be very time specific. It needs to be emotionally appealing. It needs to be something that everyone in your team gets really pumped up about. And that anyone, if you ask them, what is our objective? Every person in your business should know that objective and should be really quite proud of it as well. It's something they can understand and repeat. It's not management speak, it's something that's spoken in their own language. And if the business reaches that objective, then we're happy. That's all we're going for. That's our objective. We're not then going to be asking for objective plus 10%. We're looking just to reach that objective. And that's central to the planning for the business. And once we've reached that, we can move on to a goal. So the goals are very quantitative. And they are the points you have to reach in order for you to achieve your objective. And they may change depending on where you are. In a sales and marketing sense, the sales, it's revenue. It may be units. It may be margin. It may be profitability. It may be cost of sale. And each one of those has to have a very specific figure, but it's also a figure that has to be measurable. Okay, so everyone can measure sales, otherwise we've all got a bit of a problem. But don't come up with goals that are actually very difficult to pin down. They need to be very clear and they need to be very simple, so that again, everyone in the business knows what they are. So SMART goals, I'm sure we've heard this before. These are slightly different. So the specific, it needs to be a very clear description of what that goal is. It's a sales goal, and the sales in a particular territory in a particular time period, for example. It needs to be measured. It might be a number, or it might be a percentage change. It might be 20% growth. But again, it needs to be able to be measurable. It needs to be acceptable and ambitious to everyone around it, so that people buy into it and think they can achieve it. If they can't achieve it, they're not going to try. It needs to be, again, realistic, which is very similar to this idea of acceptability. People need to feel like they're going to get to it. It needs to be a challenge to get to it. You don't want to set easy goals, but you also don't want to set them that are too far away that people are just going to switch off and not be motivated to do that. and timely. So even if your OGSM is set for a year, and where do you want to be in a year? Some of these goals might be, well, I need to be somewhere in 3 months or 6 months. It doesn't necessarily all have to be geared over a year, and they may be staged. There are certain sales goals. An example I would use is, how many new customers am I going to get? Okay, so your end goal might be, I need to get 100 new customers this year, but in 3 months I need 50 of them, and in 6 months I need 70 of them, and then tail off that way. So set yourself specific goals within the overall time period, and don't set too many either. If you set too many goals, there's too many things to aim at. It's like throwing something in the air and trying to catch 10 things. You can't. You can only catch 3 or 4. So just set maybe 4, at a maximum 5 goals, and make them your priority. The strategies. So these are the things that you put in place to achieve your goals. Again, not too many. 5 strategies for every goal. Because that will give you the focus. Okay, don't just write down everything that you do. So when we look at these strategies, make sure you are prioritizing your resources. And setting strategies is all about making choices. We haven't got infinite amount of time, we haven't got an infinite amount of people or money, so you need to make choices between the different strategies that you want to use, and you need to write them down very clearly. And that's where the research that we talked about earlier will come in so effectively. Okay, doesn't need to be based on your current activity. The strategies you're doing, you might need different strategies and new ways of working, and that's what you need to work out. The opportunities and threats are going to change massively. So if you have, I'm going to use an example of an email marketing manager currently, you might not need an email marketing manager. You might need a social media manager instead. So just because the people are there, this is a difficult one, but just because the people are there doesn't mean that necessarily has to be the strategy for your business. And sometimes there's some very difficult decisions that need to be made in that process. The flip side of that is, if it's not on your OGSM, don't do it. Okay. In a cruise business I used to have a guy work for me who was he was great, but he was very, what's the word? Combative, should we say. And I would ask him to do things and he'd say, that's not on my OGSM, I'm not doing it. And sometimes you have to say, okay, it's not on your OGSM, it's not part of our strategic plan, we won't do it. And when we come around to reviewing our strategic plan for the next period, then we'll include these things. Because by asking people to do things that aren't on their plan, it means that really it wasn't part of your thinking, which means that your thinking wasn't strong enough in the first place. Okay. Do the strategies work together? So they need to be cohesive. If you're in marketing, if you're talking about different channels of communication, you may have an above the line advertising strategy, a CRM strategy, a social media strategy, an online strategy. They all need to work and come together because they might be using the same creative, or they might be using the same language, or whatever they are doing, but they need to be cohesive and not working at odds to each other. And finally, are they sufficient to achieve the goal? So you might add up all these strategies and find out, well, this will get me X, and this will get me X, and this will get me X. When you add up what you think those strategies are going to get you, do they achieve your goal? Okay. And finally, the measures. And the measures need to be set out at the beginning of the process, not halfway through. It's not, oh, do we need to check? You need to have a weekly dashboard that you're looking at that have all the KPIs that are the goals of your OGSM. And they need to be sent through to you either in a report or have something that's available on whatever your data management system is, where you can easily see where you are against your goals. Okay. And I think for measures, they need to be very much pre-agreed, monitored regularly, easy to get hold of, and not be producing measures 6 months in because the measures that you started with aren't working. Okay. You need to be working to the measures that you've all pre-agreed to. And with that, you create an OGSM. There's 4 parts. Now, I've put a couple on. Oh dear, that's not very legible. Here's one. So here's one that I used at World of Wedgwood. This was the strategy document. I've taken out anything that I think is specific. So I've taken out numbers and things like that. I've left in some percentages. But our objective was to create a globally recognised and profitable tourism facility through effective marketing and world-class service. That was the objective that we set. I then had a number of goals. I had one in terms of the visitor numbers and the attraction, for the attraction itself. We had a number of retail stores there. So we set very specific targets for what we were going to achieve and what that year-on-year uplift was. We also had a number of restaurants. If you've been there, there's a tea room and a food hall as well. And then looking at the marketing communications. And for each one of those, there are maybe a few too many strategies, but we were happy with each of them. And there are a number of strategies. So each manager who was responsible for those goals had those strategies. And what we were able to do then, and I won't go into it now because it'll take forever, but each individual manager had their own OGSM that was based on this central document. And this central document controlled the whole business. And I've used this now for 15 years in terms of being able to control the business. And in fact, when I left the cruise business, 6 months later, the business was sold, and it was sold on the back of an OGSM plan. Because the potential buyers or the buyers were that happy that the business was mapped out clearly and effectively and efficiently using an OGSM plan. Okay. Managing the process. I've already said the objective is very distinct from the mission and vision, and that needs to be clear. It needs to be a very inclusive and open process. Include as many people as you can to get them to buy into it, and so they know what the plan is. Make it a working document. Have it on your wall. Have it next to your computer. Don't put it in a drawer. Don't just have it filed away. Have it where it's on view. And every time you're doing anything, check, is this one of my strategies that I should be working on, or is it wasting my time? And have a regular qualitative review of the process. So every 3 months, you need to be looking at that OGSM to check it's working. That's me. I was asked for 40 minutes. I was asked to do it in 40 minutes, and just checking my watch, I can't even open it. I'm about 40 minutes, so I'm quite pleased with that. Where am I? Yes, 40. Has anyone got any questions?
Hi, Chris. Thank you ever so much for that. That was amazing. Thank you. Let's just get the participants. Bear with me 1 second. So everybody that is got any questions for Chris, if you could just pop them in the Q&A. I know some of you have probably popped it in the chat. Let's have a look. Oh no, that's fantastic. Just people saying that it's really informative. Anybody got any questions for Chris? They can put it in the Q&A now. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to do that.
Laura, can I just to say, if there are any questions around that, I realise that that's a very generic approach that I've taken. I've also gone through in 40 minutes what I've been doing for 20 years, so it's very difficult. I can't teach people to do that. I have put some tutorials on my website, and I'm more than happy to take calls, or if people want to get in touch, all of my contact details are there in case you want specific one-to-one or you have questions. I'm quite happy to do a half-hour chat with anyone and help them in terms of how they start that business planning process, because I realise that everyone's businesses are very different.
Brilliant, Chris. You've got your first question. So Helen's just asked, in terms of ROI on marketing spend, how do you quantify that on brand building?
Oh, we'll start with the most difficult question ever. Thank you. Is that from Helen? Thanks, yes. Helen. That's made my day, Helen. Thank you. ROI is incredibly difficult to build on brand building. I think there are a number of different ways to do it, but you need to be quite creative. It's around the awareness. One of the big ones is around awareness. So if you can measure awareness now and then go through a brand building process and then measure awareness at the end, and sorry, not just awareness, but the actual, you've caught me out here, Helen. I should have thought about these questions. If you measure awareness now against where you are in 3 months' time, you can see whether that brand building is working, but also a qualitative approach as well. So what are the perspectives? Get people to rate your brand, and then get them to rate them at the end. If you can get the same people or the same type of people to do that, then you can begin to justify your brand spend. I know it's one of the most difficult things because finance people are always looking that they don't understand this idea of having to invest in the brand. But if you can build it around awareness and people's perception of the brand, then you can make it number based, and that's what finance people like.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. Has anybody else got any more questions? We'll just give you a couple of minutes. I know that typing the questions out can take a couple of minutes, and they just take a couple of seconds for it to reach us in the Q&A section.
Not many questions. I must have explained everything so well.
That's not a bad thing. Just give you a couple more seconds just to pop anybody, if anybody's got an in the Q&A.
Was Helen okay with that answer? Was it a good answer, or has she got anything more specific around that?
She'll probably just answer now.
I'm going to come back with another really difficult question.
No, it looks like you answered it because she's not responded, which is absolutely fine. I don't think you've got any more questions, Chris, which is great.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Which is not a, oh, hang on a second. So Helen's just said yes, it does. But can she ask if measuring awareness includes number of followers on social media, etc.?
Yes, it can do. It can do. And again, if you look at OGSM and where we've used it in marketing, setting very specific numbers for social media followers, it is one of the goals that I have set. What you have to be very careful is it's the quality of the people who are following you. Are they the right people? It can be quite easy to get 10,000 people to follow you, but are they really within your customer segment and the people you want following you? So I would say, as well as the quantity, it's the quality of the people who are following you as well. And you can do that through questionnaires. So when people follow you, as soon as people follow you, try and engage them at that moment. It may be if people are coming onto your social media and they put something on there to ask them some very basic questions about them and about why they're following your brand and those type of things. Because you will learn from that, but you can also quantify it as well. But you need to do it at the point they're doing it. Another really good one is, and not enough people do this, and it's criminal really. If people are signing up to, let's say, a website newsletter, as soon as they do that, you need to be sending them an email that's asking them half a dozen questions about themselves. And you need to put a message up on your website that says, thanks for signing up. We've sent you that email because people may be doing this in front of the TV and they're on the phone or on their iPad or whatever it may be. If you respond to them there and then, you can start a conversation right there. There's too many people who, when they sign up for a website newsletter, they leave it, they just go into a pot and they get a newsletter in 30 days time and people have lost interest by then. So get them while they're hot and while they're interested, because the people will also think, these people care, this brand cares. There you go.
That's very good, Chris. Lots of food for thought there. Do you just get in a load of thank yous, just people really just pleased? Muna just says the webinar has been really useful, a lot of food for thought. Helen just said brilliant, thank you. Samantha just says the questions will come when we start the plan for sure, which is very true. Just quite a few people just saying thank you, Chris.
If anyone wants to contact me on these, I'm on LinkedIn as well. If anyone wants to link up on LinkedIn, Very happy to answer questions and have that initial conversation if they're very specific questions. I'm sure a lot of people at the moment are thinking, well, there's some interesting information there, but how does it apply to my specific business? This applies to any business at all, and any function within the business. So if you want to get in touch with me direct, please do.
Okay, you've got just one more question we'll just do for you, Chris. Ben just says, I just want to thank you for taking the time for delivering this presentation. It was most informative. I think for myself, the difficult element now is trying to reach new customers. We've always gained new clients based on existing relationships. However, we seem to be drying up, and now we are looking to online platforms, currently rebranding new websites and looking at social networks such as Facebook and LinkedIn. Any recommendations on how to spread the word to gain followers, etc.?
There's all manner of different ways through different social media channels. And to be honest, I focus on a step back from that. And I think the thing to do is to find out as much as you possibly can about the customers that you already have, because that will give you all of the information you need to find more. That will unlock a lot of things. Once you've unlocked them, then I can recommend social media specialists who can go out and they know exactly how to do it. But knowing who your customers are and who you want to target is absolutely central. I'm a customer segmentation geek, and one of the things I use is Mosaic. And that is a profiling tool that allows you to look very closely at who the people are who are following you and draw up pen pictures. And from that, you can find new ways of either getting more money out of those existing customers, finding partners who also appeal to those customers, but also the groups that you're not reaching. And then you can look at the strategies you need to find the groups that you're not reaching. And sometimes that's more important than the people you are reaching.
Well, brilliant, Chris. That was absolutely fantastic and great.
Okay.
I just want to thank everybody, all the attendees today. Thank you for being the part of the webinar today. For those of you that might have come in slightly late, just after the webinar started, you will be able to find a copy of this webinar on our webinar library tomorrow, and probably tomorrow morning on the Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce website. I just want to thank Chris so much for putting this webinar together today, and hopefully, Chris, we look forward to seeing you very shortly, very soon within the Chamber as well.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. No, thanks for having me on. It's been
Thanks,
really
everyone.
interesting.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, Laura. Thank you. Bye.